What's going on, everybody? I'm Captain RoBear, and this is Critical Role. Call of the Netherdeep. Should I buy it? Live review. Right over here on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Captain RoBear. How's it going, everybody? Welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. We are fresh off the drop for all you night owls that were up last night, waiting for it to drop at midnight Eastern time. I know there was a few of you out there. I was one of them. First and foremost, disclosures. I did not receive a review copy as of yet, so these opinions are of my own completely. I have only received a copy through the creator program on dndbeyond.com, and I am not contractually obligated to say anything that I do not want to. That is the most important part. How do you guys like being on the big screen? You like that? You get a little hype, you get to see some pictures while we talk about the review? I know. I said that I would do this when hell froze over, and I officially hell is frozen over. I'm even creating the clickbait title in the YouTube thumbnail. I'm going full sellout just to promote us playing this actual module, because you know that's what we're about over here. I could care less whether you soak up my opinion or not. You guys should, number one, make your own judgment calls and not listen to anyone else on the internet. But if you care to listen to me, here you go. You're going to get my full take on the whole shebang. So let's start off with the good, the bad, and the ugly, all right? Since we're on YouTube and we're doing reviews now, which is like one step away from React content. I think we're gonna have a drink on that. I wouldn't even waste my own voodoo on that. Got a little mineral water to cleanse the palate. Let's talk about what isn't inside the module. So when I first opened it up, I take a look and I see who's in charge, and it's who I thought. It's Matt Mercer, it's Chris Perkins, and it's James Hake. So the first thing you know, writing's gonna be solid. Number one. You look at the rest of the credits, you got a good team, but what you're gonna find is you're missing a few things. And by missing a few things, you don't have subclasses. You don't have new spells. You have a very limited set of new items. So traditionally when you buy these modules, they kind of sweeten the pot a little bit. And even if you're maybe not interested with that module's content, you are like, oh, okay, I want to pick it up because we got some additional subclass options. I want 5E's full meal deal. I'm going to pick this thing up regardless whether I play this module or not. That's not in here. There is completely devoid of that. You're going straight into this sucker with an introduction to the adventure and the world. So if you pick up modules based off of trying to, like, Pokemon collect all the things, there's a handful of magic items, but they're really only relevant. There are, the same way, the creatures are pretty relevant to the adventure. So right off the bat, you're going, okay, this is really targeted for, like, if you want to play in the CR world or not. I was a little bummed about that. Now, I don't say it makes up for that, but essentially what you have to do is you have to go and piece it together with the two other supplements that they have. They had the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, and they just re-released the Tal'Dorei Guide. So they added more classes and more stuff into what was already released book. Now, the problem is that that's out there in Green Ronin Publishing, and Green Ronin Publishing doesn't hook up to your D&D Beyond. So it's a separate supplement. So anybody that's ever found that they just love a third-party publisher and they want to use them really, really bad, but doesn't link up to your D&D Beyond, you're back to putting in your own data entry. Now, luckily, if you've gone and moved to Foundry, data entry a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper. You're not forced to buy another module inside your VTT. You can, there's a million hookups. You can use Mr. Primate's wonderful importer, which is what I do, and I move my stuff directly from D&D Beyond into Foundry, so it's not so bad. I've gotten pretty good at the data entry side on Foundry, so if there's something I really, really want, I can usually do it. And at the end of the day, these are subclasses. A lot of times you're not entering mechanically a whole lot of stuff in there. It's usually 1 to 4 different things, so it's pretty easy to layer on top. That's not so big of a deal, but if you want this extra flavor, that's what you're going to end up having to do. You're going to have Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, which will give you a whole plethora of races inside Matt's world, gives you all of the lore, as a whole Wildmount gazetteer, which you're used to when you're looking up different pieces of lore for specific areas. Inside it, there are, I think there's some magic items here. There's a bestiary, there's some treasures, and there's extra classes within it, subclasses within it. And the new Tal'Dorei guide has 9 subclasses in it. So if you want to get the traditional, like, okay, I want to jump in this and I want to be a rifleman from Whitestone that has an armament that Percy designed, you're going to end up wanting to grab these new 2 supplements. Now, here's the ugly. All right, here's the ugly. If you want Tal'Dorei Reborn, you have to go to Critical Role's website and buy the hardback just to get the PDF. So if you're like me, where you're interested in trying to minimize all the extra junk that you have to go out and get that physical book just to get the PDF. So you got to spend the $50 there just to get the subclasses out of it, plus your wild mount to put it all together. That's the ugly. I don't like that. That's a lot just to get into CR's world. For sure. And I'll be honest, I watched the first campaign religiously. Haven't watched nearly as much of the second campaign, and when third came around, it was like, okay, it's time for me to kind of jump back up on the ship again. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So there's a significant amount of lore that I'm missing in between. So I'm like in a lot of places too. I can't claim that I'm a super fan to be able to connect all the dots. So the whole package there, you're kind of split up. Now, when you get into this thing, it gets lore droppy really quick. And even though I'm familiar with Matt's world, there's a lot they're gonna throw at you. I think the best way to combat it is to not get overwhelmed. Most of it is standard high fantasy. Gods, titans, clash, create the world. Deities rise up in between it. Don't get hung up on all the terms. They're pretty much standard. And now that they've mixed in with D&D, they're not having you use phrases that aren't D&D intellectual property. Like inside this module, it'll actually say Vecna instead of the whispered one. Stuff that we have to do if we're publishing generally on our own. Since this is a collaboration, they are able to layer that in. So it's more of, okay, here's Matt's homebrew meets the actual Critical Role. So it's easy to divest. I think one of your biggest problems is going to be able to get your players that aren't used to any Critical Role lore. You're going to get them caught up piece by piece. And when I sent out for our campaign, which we're going to be playing this Thursday at 9:30 p.m. CDT over here on twitch.tv/Captain RoBear, I went and sent out and said, don't get hung up on the small stuff. Every session, I'm going to be able to drop meta lore while we're inside it. So to make it very, very clear, because I don't want anybody to have the pressure that they have to go home and study before they play this in CR, like, in CR world. Like, that's the last thing that I want out of it. I think that's what a lot of people are going to fear about picking up that aren't used to CR or wanting to learn like the plethora. I think it's going to be your GM's job to ease that in, but it's totally doable. It's not much different than if you pick up and say, hey, we're going to play something like Legends of Theros that's very Greek orientated. You know the basics, right? Most of that Greek background, but it's got different names and you can piece it together over time. I think that's where you'll find, where this module will lie. Now, the good parts, if you are a huge CR fan, it has all the cool destinations that you've ever wanted to visit. That's the dope part. Now, if you strict just to the module, it makes the world seem so much smaller. Because my biggest gripe over the entire deal is that they don't have the whole map structure of Exandria. And when I was pinpointing, I was like, okay, where do I want to start my adventure? Because full disclosure, I start my campaigns at level 6. We play heroic. Most of my stat blocks are entirely raised. We're playing very, very much an Avengers style. And we can kind of navigate around a world much sooner than most parties. So I'm looking, okay, how do I want to integrate my adventure and my storytelling into the world of CR? Because that's the first thing. I don't want to just go in there. I'm not there to tell just a CR story. I'm there to combine my storytelling and my worlds with their world. And immediately I was like, you know what? With this adventure and called the Netherdeep, there's a very region that's close to our heart over here in my community called the Deep Below. The Deep Below is the Netherdeep. The Netherdeep is the Deep Below. So automatically, anybody that's watched any of Game of Saving Throws or any of Baldur's Gate, you're immediately going to know these are one and the same. So we have a whole lore and set and pantheon and gods and activities that belong within this, because that's how we're going to bridge these two worlds together. So look at it that way, and like, how can I put these pieces together and not just go, okay, I'm just telling a CR story. Now you can do that. Absolutely. If that's, if that's what you're into and you want to do that, that's fine. But me, it's more of a joining together. Now, I wanted particularly to go, hey, I kind of want to start in an iconic place, like, I don't know, have a beer in a certain part of the world where they just shot, well, they didn't shoot, but they animated the series. I don't know. How about a beer underneath the sun tree to kick this bad boy off? So I'm going, okay, where's Whitestone at? So I'm piecing together the maps, and it took me using a wiki, both my Adventure Up, Tal'Dorei, Wildmount, to find all the maps to find out, okay, what places have ports? What do they look like? Where do they fit inside the map? Orientating myself inside the world was difficult. And I kind of half-assed know what I'm looking for. That was my biggest gripe with trying to figure out how I wanted to go. Now, the campaign's going to sit you in Jigao, which is a really cool place, and we're still going to go there. We're still going to start off inside this because they're doing the, which is really cool. They're going to start off with skill challenges and a festival. And this is where you encounter this first rival adventuring party. So we're going to get there, but I have some story to tell with why my party is in Exandria in the first place. How did they get here? How have they left from their material plane to this material plane and know it exists? So we have storytelling and development to do there, which is really cool. Now, I think I've addressed most of my gripes. The good stuff. All right? Writing's killer. Pacing is excellent. The story itself, if you are a JRPG fan, you're gonna love it, because that's what it is. It's 100% a love letter to that style of adventure. Coolest part, it's got the BioShock treatment, or the BioWare treatment, I should say. Your choices matter. And what I love about having choices that matter is they've laid out consequences for almost everything that you do. And then I get to add my own, which is going to be even more fun. How I layer in my world and its consequences. So the writing shines. The part that makes it distinctively Critical Role, that is the absolute asinine amount of statted NPCs inside this module. It's absurd. And I think what they've done is they've taken a module and they invested their time and said, we're going to give a DM the ultimate improv prep experience. So now it's like, no matter where you go, this sucker is lined out. It has somebody for you to talk to. It is not putting the onus on the DM to do a ton of work on character. And that's what this is. It's based off of a lot of dialogue, RP heavy, which is what CR is known for. They're trying to bring that style game and baby step you into that, into the home game. Not something I necessarily need, but I tell you what, having a big old stack of them, it's nice because you throw it in the table. There'll be NPCs from this I never even get to that I'll grab out for later. So as a DM, totally got myself a nice little bonus, which was really, really cool. I dug the hell out of that. Wasn't expecting that. I think that's everyone's biggest surprise and takeaway from the actual module. Artwork, you guys have already seen it on the screen. It's world class. You're gonna have plenty of pieces that help set the mood for where you're at. This very much has pulp adventure to it. It's Indiana Jones style. It's pitting you against another party that's adventuring for the same goal. And I won't lie, when I first saw the front of it, I was like, they designed this of you against Critical Role. They don't want to say it. They're not their characters, but you look at it and you go, that's totally what this is. It's you in a race against this other adventuring party. And I imagine as we go through and check out the writing, that it has the diverse representation of what you would expect from a CR table inside their party. Just a hunch. Now, it's my biggest wild card. I'll be honest, I think 99% of groups are gonna kill that other party. I don't think they're gonna take no shit. And I think they're gonna go back into their old ways and be like, you know what? They're not crossing me. It'll be interesting to see the percentage of the population that will actually take the time to develop the story with this other party. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't even know for my own group. And I'm going to have to role play these people. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to handle it, but it's a fun wild card. Super fun wild card to have. I'm stoked. I love the locations that we're going in here. I think that's what I'm probably most excited about. Iconic locations that I hope I can make as iconic through my storytelling as Matt in his table was able to reveal to me when I first saw these locations in my own mind's eye. This is kind of like going in and playing in, Narnia or in C.S. Lewis's world or Tolkien's world. It's very similar to that. D&D's different. D&D feels more of a template, and it feels more group ownership. Even though Ed owns the Forgotten Realms, at this point it feels so homebrewed over that it feels like everybody has a piece of it. This is New Frontier, so I'm excited to tamper with it and twist it and make it my own. And I'll be honest, when it first announced that they were going to do a CR module, I was like, I don't think I want to play with someone else's world. Theirs felt too private. Felt like their thing, and I don't want to touch their thing. Now that I've looked at it a different way and a little bit different approach, and they've expanded so much from what they originally were, I'm excited to blend the worlds. And understanding what Netherdeep was the first time, I was like, oh, this is the deep below. We share this is the same world. This is great. I love that. That changed my mind, and I get asked these questions all the time, like, should I buy this module? Well, your answer is maybe. It all depends on if you want to run an adventure in CR. If you do, you're going to love it. If you want to run adventures no matter what, and you enjoy yourself in that way, you're going to dig it. If you don't care about CR or the exotic locations, probably not the module for you, because you're going to need the other pieces. Now for me, getting to step into another set of shoes is another level of empathy, understanding, world building, and things that I'm going to pick up. From that, it is another feather inside my cap. So I couldn't pass it up at that point. And also, we have to do these things for the SEO so people can find us out on the internet. Because they're going to find my homebrew campaign. They're going to find this campaign. It's important to do these things on top of it. So it is part business. It is part love. Should you buy it? It depends on all of those factors. Don't worry about the opinions of the rest of the internet. You need to look at your own ledger sheet and go, does this work for my own table game? How about you ask the people at your table if they want to play? That's probably a bigger factor than anything else. But you know what? I'm glad I could clickbait you over into a video and sucker you in to some sort of what you would think is a negative fest where I should suggest that you don't buy any of these products. It's bullshit and will always be bullshit. Look at your own likes and wants and compare them always. And remember, we're going to be playing this game and this campaign this Thursday, 9:30 p.m. CDT, twitch.tv/Captain RoBear. I know there's a certain big group. I don't know if you've heard of them, Critical Role, that plays on that night. Well, remember, guys, they're not live. You can catch them. We all know you got an extra sub over in their channel to watch later. Come over and watch us live on Thursday night. Is it Thursday yet?